Welcome to this edition of Insider Secrets, the weekly podcast that turns real estate investing goals into reality. Each show, we interview guests who are seasoned real estate professionals, actively closing and managing real estate deals. Mike is the founder of My Core Intentions and would like to help you make your real estate investing dreams a reality. Mike coaches you to buy investment real estate, creating short-term cash flow and long-term wealth. Your host and real estate coach, Mike Morawski, has more than 30 years of real estate investing and property management experience. Here's your host, Mike.
Hey everybody, good afternoon. It's Mike, and we're back again with this week's episode of Insider Secrets, brought to you by My Core Intentions. I am really glad that you're here today. You know, my intention today is that I'm going to deliver great content to you, some relevant information, some things that are going to help inspire you, maybe help push you personally so that you grow professionally. You have a great guest today, somebody I'm really excited about. This is a guy that I had the opportunity to meet at a couple of events here in Chicago. We've just started to build a relationship, and I look forward to having the opportunity to build a little bit longer relationship with him. I'm joined today by Josh Mercer. Josh, why don't you say hi to everybody?
Hello, everybody. Mike, thanks again for having me on. Very excited to be a part of the podcast. I love the work that you're doing. Super excited to be here.
Appreciate you being here, Josh, and taking the time out in between the holidays and that. Let me tell you a little bit about Josh, everybody. Josh grew up in Chicago's South Side. And if you know anything about Chicago, there's some neighborhoods that aren't the best neighborhoods in the world. We're going to see today how he fought through that. If you know anything about those submarkets, we can only imagine what life must have been like for Josh. He graduated from Howard University with a BA in marketing. He went on into the banking and financial services industry, earned a master's degree in educational foundation, founded Swish Dreams Sports and Educational Foundation. Josh joined the family Allstate business and today operates Mercer Agency in his spare time. Josh enjoys real estate sales and podcasting to fill in his empty spots. Josh, I always say that it's interesting when people have a side hustle or their side hustle becomes their way of life and their business. As much as you're doing insurance and running the family business, that side hustle will creep up on you a little bit from time to time too. One question I ask all my guests when I kick off my show is, in one word, what best describes you personally and professionally?
I would say resilient. I think that's been a part of what has made me who I am. Just a lot of failure and a lot of learning, but not giving up. I think that over time, people that have really experienced success in life have major stories of failure and great comeback stories. So for me, I would say resilient. I'm still learning.
I like that word resilient. That's how my life is too. And I have to say, I've been doing this podcast and probably 80 some episodes in now, almost 90, I think. And nobody's ever said resilient. So I honor you for that, because that's a big word and it's not something that comes easy to people. And I think that I've seen a lot of men and women just lay down and say, I give up, I quit. That's the one thing that I got when I first met you, was that you weren't somebody who did that. You were somebody who wanted to move forward, wanted to help other people. I was attracted to your spirit and who you are. Hey, do me a favor, fill some backstory and tell us what it was like growing up on the South Side and how you got to where you're at, going to college and all that today.
Sure. I grew up for a little bit in the Woodline area, 65th and Vernon. That area is turning around now. That's where my mom grew up. And then in third grade, we moved to Beverly. My mom, she got an opportunity to be an insurance agent and go into business for herself. That's really when life started to change, because she became a successful business owner over time. But we were a single family household, so there were struggles here and there. But in terms of the neighborhood that I really grew up in Beverly, which is on the south side of Chicago, that was great. It provided me with a lot of structure. I had a lot of positive families that were in my area. My mom made sure I was raised in church, always put me in a ton of sports. When I went to high school, I went to Brother Rice High School, which is all boy high school. Mom didn't want me to be around any girls at that time. She just wanted me to focus on graduating. Then I went away to school, went to Howard University, had an amazing time in Washington, D.C., historically Black college, a lot of history. Everybody from Thurgood Marshall to Kamala Harris to Puff Daddy and Chadwick Boseman. That's really when I guess the light bulb went off for me, because for the first time I had role models in every facet of life that I could touch. They also looked like me. Growing up, we didn't have too many of those type of examples. And my mom was a great example, but she was in the insurance industry. But I just got exposed to so much. When I graduated from college, I really had a hard time finding myself career-wise. So I really struggled in corporate America. It was almost like culture shock. It was like college went past like that. And the next thing you know, you expected to find a job, and that's your life. So for me, I hopped around from job to job. I think I got fired from a few places, but that really afforded me the opportunity to learn myself and write things down. And I remember one thing I said, I was like, man, I'll never work on Saturday again. I wrote that down. I didn't want to work on Saturdays. I had another job. I worked at the train station. I had to be at work at 4 a.m. When you're 21, 22, 4 a.m. is when you're supposed to be leaving the club, not going to work. So that was tough. So I just wrote things down. I had so many failures when it came to my career. And I say failures because my friends, their careers were taking off. They were making like 90 grand. I'm like, damn, I'm struggling. I'm making 30 grand working 4 jobs. They're doing their thing. But what it allowed me to do was just really think and put pen to paper about the life that I really wanted to have. So I did work in banking for a little bit in Inglewood. And that was really tough because we were expected to open up checking accounts and do mortgages for a population that really didn't have the financial literacy. It was a struggle just to open up a checking account. I did that. Like I said, I worked at the train. I was a bartender. I refereed basketball games. I did everything. And I eventually ended up going back to school to get my master's degree in education. Honestly, that really was the game changer for me. Going back to school, it allowed me to sit down, and then they also paid me a stipend. So I was able to support myself. It was like a scholarship. I was able to support myself, go back to school, learn some things, and really prepare for being an adult, because I wasn't really prepared mentally coming out of school. I was good in the classroom, but I wasn't ready to go to work every day and have that type of structure that working for somebody else requires you to have. So when I graduated a master's degree in elementary education, one of the things I'm noticing while I'm getting my master's degree, we have to do all these studies about poverty, about low education, and every study that you read is about low income and Black people, like every single study. And so that made me realize how blessed I was to have a high school diploma, have a college degree, but I was surprised at the poverty rates. I was surprised at the low education. And of course, anywhere there's low education and poverty, there's going to be crime. It was cyclical. It was like a constant cycle. I was learning this in the books. After a while, you go to the classroom. And of course, me being a Black male, they put me in the worst of the worst school. They're like, yeah, Mercer, you going over there. I'm like, oh man. But I was excited. I was young. I had 1,000 ideas. I love sports. So it was things that I wanted to introduce to this segment of a population that I really wasn't used to being around. I had experience of I grew up watching my mom as an entrepreneur. So I had a ton of ideas and I was ready to get into the classroom. So while I was getting my master's degree, I started a nonprofit called Swish Dreams Sports and Educational Foundation. What we do, we teach kids math and reading through sports. So for example, we might say if LeBron James takes 10 shots and makes 5, what does that look like as a fraction, as a decimal, as a percentage, as a ratio? Write a poem about your favorite player. Give me the sports rankings. When you're not playing, they were required to keep score. They have to write about the games. I was using the state standards for math and reading to teach these kids sports, because when I grew up, I was a huge Jordan fan. I grew up collecting baseball cards. And you look at the back of the baseball cards, it teach you batting average, on-base percentage. These are things that when I was a kid, I was really into. I knew that if I got the kids to buy into learning about the math related to sports, I could teach them, hey, if you shoot at 20% from three-point line, you probably don't need to be taking that shot. That's a bad shot. I could break it down beyond just, oh, that's a nice dunk. That's a nice move. We could break down the percentages. And we could break down probability. I could introduce all these other languages that are transferable skills. I was so surprised at how many of these kids realistically thought they were going to go to the NBA. I used to tell them, you can't beat me. I don't care if you in 8th grade. If you can't beat me right now, you're not going to the NBA. If you're not taller than me, I'm 5'6". you're not going to the NBA. So you need to learn how to apply math and reading and speaking and social skills. So long story short, that program grew to about 700 kids. It was huge. So I got a ton of sponsors, created a board of directors. I ended up teaching for about 7 years. Of course, as you know, teaching doesn't always pay the bills. So my mom, she saw what I did with Swish Dreams. She's like, okay, this is cool. I like what you're doing. So she helped me purchase my first building. So she was like, you know what? I'm going to co-sign for you to get a building, and you're going to live in the basement. So initially I was like, I want to get a condo. I want to be downtown. But to be honest, I couldn't afford a condo. And I was surprised to see at how condos and houses were like the same price. A downtown condo, like a one bed was the same price as like a 3-unit building on the south side. But my mom, she told me, I remember her telling me, she was like, condos are for people that got money and you don't have money. So you need to get a building. And that didn't make sense. So she was like, you can stay right here, stay in this basement. They can pay your mortgage. At the time, I'm a teacher. I'm making probably like 50 grand a year. And that's working, teaching, coaching. So she co-signed on the building. And then she gave me her credit card to rehab the basement so I could have a bathroom down there. I could have a kitchen, all of that. So I know everybody's parents don't have the ability to do that. I did pay her back. Took me like 5 years to pay her back. This was also during a period where you can do like a stated income on your to buy a place. So of course I stated my income and got qualified, but this is when the light bulb went up. So I had entrepreneurship. I had my Swish Dreams camp. At the point in time I had like 16 teachers, but oddly enough, it's a nonprofit. So I was only making maybe 5 or 10 grand a year doing that, despite me having 700 kids. It turned off the wheels in terms of you can create something and you can add value. You can make money. So I did that. And of course I was throwing parties on the side. So I was building up a database, and every now and then I would make $500 here, $1,000 there for throwing parties. The main thing was I had this building. So I believe the mortgage at the time was like $2,600. My income from teaching at the time was like $2,400 after taxes. I remember getting tenants in there, and I remember looking at the income like there. Because my mom, she told me, she was like, look, before anybody moves in, go over their leases. I want you to get a month and a half plus the first month rent. I need you to collect. Her name is tied to the building. So she was making sure that I was on point. So she was like, I want you to get their pay stubs. I want you to run their credit. So I'm looking at their pay stubs. I'm like, damn, you make more than me. Why are you living over here? I was surprised to see that. So like I said, the mortgage is $2,600. I got one tenant in there. They paying me $1,200 a month. I'm like, damn, that's half the mortgage right there. I get another tenant in there. They paying me $1,050, but they were paying their own heat and utilities. So you add that up, $400 is left for me. I'm like, oh, this is nothing. So automatically, even though I wasn't really making more money, my buying power was increased, because now my friends that I had that were working in corporate America making 80, 90 grand a year, it can level the playing field in terms of that bill that they had for rent, where they paying $2,000 and $1,500 a month. I didn't have that anymore. I was living the same life. Now I have a 3,000 square foot building, producing income. I remember when I filed my taxes after that first year, it was like a question on like the electronic tax form. It was like, do you own a multi-unit? How much did you put into it? I remember I rehabbed it. So it was like 30 grand. My tax refund I got back, I was like, damn. So you're telling me I could buy real estate, have people pay me to live there, that can pay off my mortgage for me, and then I could benefit from a tax perspective. Right. So all these light bulbs were going off.
Hang on one second here. So here's what I want to do. I want to zone in on this piece right now. And I want to go back. You said something early on that your mom all of a sudden became an entrepreneur. Where did she get it?
Single parent. She's working way out in Skokie, Illinois. A guy came in and he was like, man, you're too cute to be in corporate. You need to be in sales. You need to quit this. That's what he told her. And she was like, what you mean? He was like, look, take a chance. He was trying to build his team. So he got her to come out, and at that time, got her to quit her job with Allstate in the corporate sector and become an Allstate agent, because they were trying to really like focus on the South Side. He basically broke it down to her and said, this is what you can make. So of course, you know how business is. You starting off slow, you ain't making nothing, it's stressful, all of those things. Well, she was highly motivated, how being a single mom, she got me to take care of her. She got herself. I just looked up one day And we went from a house that was like this, sharing the bed. And next thing I know, I had my own room. Then a few years later, we had a house. Then a few years later, she had her own office. This is over a period of 20 years. I distinctly remember us living with my grandma, and me and my mom shared a bed up until I was like 10. And 2 years later, my mom had a condo, and now I have my own bed. When you're a kid, you're not thinking about none of that. But when I play back in my mind, then by the time I got to 7th grade, now we got a nice house with an extra bedroom and a yard. I'm like, damn, this is different. Then by the time I go to college, mom got a nice condo downtown, and she's renting out the other places that we had previously lived. But she doesn't like real estate. She don't like it at all. She appreciates it, but she don't like it. The money's too slow for her, and she don't have time to go back and forth with tenants. But the light bulb for me, because I struggled so much in corporate America, by the time I got to a situation where somebody was paying for my overhead from my house, that was crazy. And when I refinanced, the mortgage went from $2,600 to $1,600. So now I was cash flowing. I was like, yo, this is nuts.
So let's back up for a minute. Here's the point I wanted the listeners to take into their heart is that Josh's first piece of real estate's a small multifamily. He house hacked it. He lived in the basement. The things you learned, right? You put all this money in, you got a tax deduction, and then you got money back on your taxes. So, all the things you learned along the way about how to meet a tenant, how to screen a tenant, market a tenant, rehab a place, put a tenant in. Where'd you go after that first multifamily deal?
I'll tell you this too. I bought this building in 2007 when the real estate market was like at a high. When everybody was excited about buying stuff in Chicago and probably nationwide. I remember I had friends that bought condos that overpaid, that bought houses that overpaid. I overpaid from a 3 flat. I paid $340, and then a year and a half later, it got appraised in $150. But even still, because I had tenants, I didn't feel that loss. But I had friends that bought houses or condos for $300, and then other condos in the building were getting foreclosed for $50,000, $60,000. So I was really unaffected by like that crisis. That goes back to picking really good tenants to stay in there. You can't be really thirsty to just put anybody that can breathe in your unit. You really want to follow the best practices when it comes to that.
What are a couple of your tenant standards? In that space, you have to have tenant standards. So what are some of your standards to rent to a tenant?
So for me, number one is, as a landlord, you have to keep your places nice. Meaning you can't neglect your building, because there's going to come a day where the tenant is going to move out. You want that place, you want to be able to turn it over quick. So if you're neglecting your building, you're going to have big improvements that you're going to have to make that are going to be costly. Also, if you respond to tenants and you stay on top of them, they'll keep your place nice for the most part. It might not be up to your standard, but it won't be a huge cost like somebody's just tearing stuff out. Now, for me, in terms of standards, I look at anywhere from 2.5 to 3 times the monthly rent. That's what I want you to be making in terms of income. I'm looking at no evictions in the past 7 years. At that time, I wanted a 1.5 months plus the first month's rent. Now I don't do a security deposit. I just do a move-in fee. I'm getting references from your employer. Of course, I'm getting pay stubs. I'm looking at stuff that's on your background, criminal activity. When it comes to criminal activity, if you went to jail or something, and if it's something minor, fine. But if it's a murder or a rape, that's a no for me. Anything else, I can overlook. I'm looking for references from your job. And if you have kids, I want to see a report card. I just want to know that I want to be with somebody that when I'm waking up for work, you're going to work too. I'm looking for somebody that is responsible, because I'm entrusting you. So I do ask for a report card, because report card is going to tell me how many times your kid was tardy. You don't have to be a straight A kid. It could be all C's, but you got to be proactive in this, because you want to build community in these buildings, because you don't want people moving out. When a tenant knows that you're checking up for all that information and other tenants know, they trust you. They're like, okay, he's thorough. And when we do the lease, we have to read it word by word together. So I read the whole 3 or 4 page lease word by word, and then we both sign together. The 2 times I didn't do that, I had to evict somebody. The other thing that I look for, I always charge a little bit less than market rent. because I want you to stay. All my tenants have been there at least 14 or 15 years. So I want people to stay. So I might put something small like a washer and dryer. I look for buildings that may have good parking, and I won't charge my tenants for it. So if market rent is $1,400, I might charge $1,350 or throw in something extra because I want people to stay and pay. So those are like the main things I look for. I know it sounds like a lot, but you lose money as a landlord when people are moving out. You might have to pay $2,500 to paint that place and maybe replace something. That's just not something that you always want to do, or you might be wanting to put that money somewhere else. But I've never had a problem with replacing a tenant, I should say.
So I have a couple other questions I want to ask outside this conversation. Where do you see the market going right now? Here we sit coming out of this pandemic. We're going into a new year. What's your expectation for the real estate market?
That's a great question. Real estate market, it really depends on how the job market goes in terms of people going to be working from home. Is that going to become a normal thing? You got all these other considerations, this whole metaverse thing where people are buying virtual real estate, which is something I haven't even really looked into. I think that houses are going to become more important for people that have the means to purchase and maintain a house. I think that downtown is always going to be an appeal, especially in Chicago, because everything is built around downtown, whether it's shopping, whether it's the lake. But I do see people migrating to communities where you have a nice yard, where you have a nice driveway, where you have an extra bedroom that can serve as an office. So it's a lot of different factors. I was reading a report yesterday that housing prices are back down to where they were in April. It is coming back down, but you got to look at interest rates. Banks are doing the stated income that I was doing. You can't do that anymore. Everything is a little bit tighter. I think houses are always going to be stable if you buy in a stable area. Condos, I think, will have less appreciation than homes, but I think multifamilies are still a good thing. I think it's going to be more on landlords to keep places sanitary and to offer things that maybe they didn't offer previously, especially if you're building something new.
Yeah, it's interesting. You just read this report about house prices being back where they were in April. But yeah, I think you're right about that. Downtown market is robust, will probably stay robust, but it's interesting where the economy goes. And I think work from home is going to be the thing that everybody's doing, right? Part of your job, part of what you do. I look at people around me that are working from home and they're going to be there for a while. There's no plan to move back in an office, which when you look at office as a real estate sector, I had heard something about 6 months ago that there was like 5 years absorption rate to rent all of the vacant office space right now in downtown Chicago. Whether that's changed or not, I don't know. There was an awful lot of office space that was vacant. I think real estate comes in all classes, all sizes, all shapes. Talk about technology a little bit. What do you like to use technology-wise?
When it comes to real estate, I subscribe to like everything, whether it be Redfin, Realtor.com. I'm a licensed realtor, so I am on the MLS. I read Crane's magazine. I'm a subscriber to that. I follow people like yourself. Oddly enough, man, when it comes to technology, I more so follow certain individuals who are active in real estate, certain realtors that I follow, certain podcasts that I listen to. I listen to Earn Your Leisure. I listen to another one. I think it's called Sleepers for Suckers.
You have a podcast. Tell us about your podcast a little bit. What's that about?
Yeah, my podcast is Go Fish Village. Go Fish Village is really, like that saying goes, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. So my motto is helping people create financial freedom through real estate. That's really what my mom helped me do. She taught me how to fish because at one point I was staying with her, but she made me pay all the utilities in the house, cable, all of that. Then I moved, went with my friends, paid rent there. And then she taught me how to fish. She said, hey, I'm a co-sign for you to get this building. She made me liquidate all of my retirement, every dollar I had, and put it into the building. So I got the building. She showed me how to read through leases. She showed me how to vet tenants. She linked me up with a contractor, so I managed the property. While we were doing the rehab, I was living in the basement. I only had a microwave, the bathroom for about 6 months, and an air mattress. But I was only 24. I didn't care. I was just happy to have privacy. My mom, she taught me how to fish. Had she just, let's say, bought me a house or just paid my rent, or had I experienced success early on in my career, financially, without falling on my face, these things wouldn't have happened. So I was forced to learn and come in through the back door. So that's what we talk about. And I talk about how I bought my first place, then I refinanced it, then I bought another place, then I bought another place, then I eventually sold the first one to buy my dream home. It's just like moving pieces around. There's a saying, the best time to buy real estate is always 5 years ago. And that's something that I subscribe to when I'm on the fence. If me and you are in the back and forth, I'm not concerned with what I'm paying you. I'm more so concerned with what I'm getting out of the deal. So yeah, I mean, real estate has been great.
So listen, we got to wind down a little bit. I feel like I could talk to you all afternoon. We'll have to get together and do that for sure. The last round of this is just some simple questions, some easy things. We're in Chicago. What's the best restaurant, in your opinion, in Chicago? What kind of food?
Wow, that's a tough question. It depends, man. If I'm getting some oysters, this place called Union Sushi that I love Gibson's. Man, it's a great place for some good steak and some seafood. I love I-57. It's on the south side. We're talking about some ribs. Love that place.
When are we going?
Yeah, they got some really good ribs. Chicago has so many different spots. And I love tacos. We talking about tacos, this place in the South Loop. I don't know the name of it, but they got 30 different type of tacos. Pizza, there's so many different pizza places. I love Beggar's Pizza.
Here's what I like about you. You talk about all these different places. I met you at this really cool little club down on South Wells Street where you were having an event. You put on a great event. I tell anybody listening to this that if you get a chance to go to one of Josh's networking events, go there. Great people, great networking, great conversation and presentation. So if you get an opportunity, go. Best tourist attraction in Chicago, Josh?
Wow, best tourist attraction. There's no feeling better than Lakeshore Drive in the day. When you see the buildings right next to the lake, right next to Grant Park, I just can't see a better selling point of why Chicago is a global city. Of course, you got Michigan Avenue, you got the United Center, you can see Michael Jordan stuff. But for me, I remember when I was a teacher, I lived in Hyde Park for 2 years, and I would take Lakeshore Drive on my start to work every day, and it never got old. It never gets old, man, especially in the summertime when you can look and see boats and you can see the women. When you're driving and you're building, it's just instant motivation. I went to South America in Rio, and they got something similar, but the architecture of Chicago is second to none. I took my wife on the Chicago dinner tour. That was amazing too. We went for our anniversary. So I would have to say just driving on Lakeshore Drive, that's priceless.
I used to run this run called the Soldier Field 10 Mile. And it started at Soldier Field and would go down to 71st Street down by the golf course. I think that the south end of Lakeshore Drive is much more attractive than the north end, especially when you're on that path and you're running or biking down there. Josh, how do people get a hold of you if they want to talk to you about insurance or real estate? What's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, I'm on social media on Instagram at Josh4 Insurance or Josh4 Real Estate. You can Google my name, just type in Joshua Mercer. Find me on Facebook or LinkedIn. I'm very accessible. Real estate, www.listwithmercer.com. For insurance, JoshuaMercerInsurance.com. You can definitely find me there. I'm pretty active on social media, dropping tips and just sharing my experiences. Hopefully people can learn from me. I'm always down to chat. It's something that I really enjoy doing.
Awesome. I would just encourage my listeners to get on your social media list and hear about your next networking events that are coming up because they're always a blast. Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here. Josh, I appreciate you for being here and your time, wealth, and knowledge. I want, hope my listeners walk away with some real good input about tenant strategies as well as small multifamily. It doesn't matter where you grew up, how you grew up, where you're at today in life. What matters is what the next step is that you're going to take forward. Again, if you'd like us, love us, subscribe to us, support us out on social media. Wherever you hang out, we hang out, whether that's Instagram, Facebook, go to YouTube and subscribe to the channel. And we will continue to bring you good, relevant content every week. Josh, thanks for being here. And everybody, will see you next week.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you for joining us for another great episode of Insider Secrets. As always, Insider Secrets is brought to you by My Core Intentions. Wherever you hang out on social media, you will find Mike and My Core Intentions. Please like and follow us to get the most up-to-date real estate investing trends. Visit mycoreintentions.com, where you can get expert coaching on all things real estate investing and property management. If you're looking to become an expert, Mike's coaching will help you scale your real estate investment business. We're looking forward to having you back again next week for more insider secrets.